All right, let's talk about ESG investing. You've probably heard the term, but it's a world just filled with confusing jargon, right? Our goal today is pretty simple. We're going to cut through all that noise so you can understand what's really going on with your money. I mean, have you ever looked at a fund's description and just felt completely lost? You see all these terms, ESG integration, impact investing, screening, and it's like, what does any of this actually mean? If that's you, trust me, you are not alone. It can feel like a whole other language.
And here's the thing. That confusion, it's more than just a little frustrating. It's a real problem. All this unclear language creates this thick fog, and that's where something called greenwashing loves to hide. It's basically when an investment is made to look way more sustainable or ethical than it really is. And, it preys on well-intentioned investors just like us.
But, and this is the good news, there is a solution out there designed to bring some much-needed sunlight and transparency to the whole industry. And it comes from the CFA Institute, which is a global group of investment pros.
So what they've done is they've developed these global ESG disclosure standards for investment products. The best way to think about them is like a rule book for investment managers. It's basically guiding them on how to talk about ESG issues in a way that's clear, fair, and most importantly, complete.
And, at the very heart of these standards is a principle that's, well, it's almost shockingly simple, but it's so powerful. The recommendation is just this. If you're going to use a specialized term, you have to define it the first time you use it. That's it. This one little practice is the key to cutting through all that fog we were just talking about.
Okay, so let's dive in and see how this works in the real world. We're going to decode some of the most common ESG terms and approaches that you're probably going to come across.
First up, ESG integration. This is probably the one you'll see the most. And it really just means that environmental, social, and governance factors are formally baked into the traditional financial analysis. Now, the key thing to get here is the goal. It's all about using this extra info to better manage risk and hopefully improve returns. It's about the financial process, not necessarily a guarantee of some ethical outcome. And hey, don't just take my word for it. Look at the definitions from 3 of the biggest players, the CFA Institute, the PRI, and the GSIA. You see that consistent theme? The key words here are systematic and explicit inclusion. It's all about formally building ESG data right into the financial model. Okay, next up we've got thematic or sustainable investing. This one's a little different. So instead of spreading ESG data across a huge portfolio, this approach is all about focusing your money on very specific themes. Things like clean energy or sustainable farming or gender equality. It's about deliberately backing specific solutions you believe in. All right, now let's talk about a super common technique. It's called screening, and it can be used all by itself or with other strategies. I like to think of it as a great big filter for your investments. The whole idea is deciding what's in and what's out, based on a set of rules. And really, you can think of it pretty literally. You're applying filters to this giant universe of potential investments. And those filters can be based on your values, like, say, avoiding certain industries. Or they can be based on performance metrics, like only picking companies with the best ESG scores.
So let's break down the 3 main types. First, there's negative screening. This is the classic approach. You're just filtering stuff out, like maybe tobacco companies or weapons makers. Then you have norms-based screening, where you're checking companies against global standards, like the UN Global Compact. And finally, there's positive screening, or best in class. This one does the exact opposite of negative screening. It actively looks for the ESG superstars in every industry.
And now we come to the big one, the term that is maybe the most powerful, but oh boy, it is also the most easily misused and misunderstood word in this entire space: impact.
I mean, this word is where so much of the greenwashing happens. Because, let's be honest, who doesn't want to say they're making a positive impact on the world? To fight back against that, the CFA Institute standards have what you could call a critical bright line rule. It's there to protect you. And the standards are crystal clear on this. For an investment to truly, honestly be called impact, it has to have 2 things. First, the intention to create a positive change, and second, a commitment to actually measure that change. The positive outcome can't just be a happy accident. It has to be the whole point.
So, this is the golden rule, the crucial point right here. It says an investment manager should not be allowed to say their product has a positive impact unless it has a significant allocation to investments that meet that super strict definition we just talked about. This is literally the firewall against empty promises.
So what this rule does is it helps you, the investor, see the difference between two very different things. On one hand, you have funds that just own a company that happens to have good ESG scores. But on the other hand, you have funds that are actually proving impact by intentionally funding something to create a specific, positive, and measurable outcome. See the difference? It's huge.
Okay, that was a lot of info. So the big question is, how do you take all of this and actually use it to become a smarter, more confident investor?
Well, here's your 3-step toolkit. Number 1, demand definitions. Look for a fund's ESG disclosure statement and see for yourself if they define their fancy terms. 2, understand the approach. Are they just integrating data? Are they screening out certain industries? Are they targeting a theme? You got to know what you're actually buying. And 3, this is the big one. Scrutinize any claim about impact. Ask for the proof. Where are the measurable goals? Show me the significant allocation.
You know, when it comes right down to it, understanding this language is what changes you from just being a passive consumer to an empowered investor. This clarity is your absolute best defense against greenwashing. It's how you can feel confident that your money is doing what you actually want it to do. So now that you speak the language, you can ask the right questions, you can demand that clarity, and you can make sure your money is truly aligning with both your financial goals and your values. So the question is, what will you demand from your investments now? Thanks for tuning in to this explainer.